Hey everybody, welcome back to Wednesday Night Recap. Maybe you were looking last week to see if we had anything, and we didn't. We ran out of time last week. We had very busy schedules last week, so sorry about that, but great to be with you today. And last night was a great study, wrapping up this whole series on thriving in Babylon concerning Daniel and his experiences. And anyways, last night was really good. We had a lot of discussion, and I enjoyed it. Pastor Brandon was filling in for Pastor Hans, who's out of town. All that was great. But we were just now trying to summarize, like, what was last night about? And the best way I think I could summarize that was, if you think about Romans chapter 14, where Paul talks in the first verse about disputable matters, and how everyone seems to have a different feeling on what's the proper way to witness, how to be a good Christian, how to really live for the Lord. And the two extremes people go to is either heavy legalism with all kinds of rules, or the opposite of no rules. And Pastor Brandon, you remember the one he led off with when you think about no rules was Bible study in a bar.
I struggled with that, and because so many different scriptures were thrown out last night. Great discussion. We had a good time in that. But somebody threw out, we're to be in the world but not of the world. And then where do we draw that line? That was kind of, I think, maybe the connection they were trying to say with Daniel in his wisdom. Yes, he had to live in Babylon. He had to go along with the customs and all that. But he knew when to draw the line. Yeah. And then when do we know where to draw the line? Because at what point are we just engaging in the activity of the world? What are we offering them any different? And we talked about churches, personal things in our life that we were thinking about, and it wasn't a debate. I wouldn't say that, but it was a good discussion. People have a lot of thoughts on that.
And today, I was thinking about last night and this morning. Pastor Brandon and I were talking about that session again, just kind of warming up for this time with you. Boy, I tell you, the boundaries were so clear 30, 40 years ago. Yeah. And they're not as clear today. And I think what happens is with that blurring, I think we lose credibility with the unsaved, with those that aren't Christians yet, because they're looking for some clarity. Yeah. And so churches do all kinds of strange things. Again, in the video, there was this guy leading Bible study in a bar with people drinking. And I know that no matter what your personal standards are as a Christian, the Bible does prohibit us from getting drunk. But you know what? The unsaved, those that aren't Christians, they kind of know. They know what our standards should be.
Yeah, you talked about that last night. Yeah, so they know they know what our boundaries are for our lives. They don't recognize them.
And so if we do that, we become hypocrites.
Right.
And in their mind, we become hypocrites. Yeah. And so I think as a church, we've got to be careful not to strive so much for to look relevant or relatable that we lose our testimony.
Right, I agree with that.
Yes. If salt loses its savor, it's good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled on.
And we kind of discussed that if the world, non-believers are coming into our church and they're not seeing the difference from what they're experiencing in the world, and we're just like them, we try to be relevant and we hurt the gospel, or we water it down, and they think, oh, I'm fine doing all the things, and they don't recognize the sin in their lives when we're partaking of every other thing that they are.
Yeah, so can something be worldly but not sinful? I wonder about that. And I think in a sense, yes, it can be worldly and not sinful. And churches have tried to do this. Some churches that I've heard about and even visited, it was like walking into a discotheque with the lights and the fog, and a non-Christian comes into that setting, they're like, hey, that's supposed to be out there. Right. Church should be churchy, and we don't have to apologize for it. Right. And Christians should be Christian. Right. We need to have values. Yeah. Anyways.
And that was kind of, he also talked about compromise, which is,
that was a big word.
Yeah, it was a big word. But it was a great series. But we wrapped it up, and Pastor is starting a brand new series next week, if you want to talk about that a little bit. Kind of tailed off of last night in making good decisions.
Yeah.
But it's called
Yeah, it's called Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. And I'll be facilitating. Andy Stanley is the video segment. It is incredible. 6 weeks of this. It'll really help every one of us to be able to make truly better decisions. And last night's lesson was a good way to end it. Almost was a natural segue for where we're going to go in this next series. Because again, as Christians, we don't ever have to apologize for our standards. And I wish Christians and churches would stop doing that. But Andy's going to get into more personal decisions. And so we're gonna sign off now, but hang in there just a second, because when we close this time with you right now, we're just going to show you a video clip which will introduce next week's Bible study. By the way, too, Bible study starting next week, Rangers and all the girls' ministries is going to go to an hour and 15-minute format. We're going to start at 7 as normal, but we're going to wrap up 15 minutes later. Okay, not quite the hour and a half we used to do, but from 7 to 8:15. And so enjoy the video clip, and we will see you Wednesday.
Here's something we all know, but we don't think much about. Life is all about decision making, right? I mean, every day, multiple times a day, sometimes we're sure, sometimes we're unsure, but in the end, we are where we are because of the decisions that we've made, right? I mean, your decisions along with your responses to other people's decisions, which are also decisions, they're about the only thing you can control in your life, which means that your decisions are how you control your life. Decisions are your steering wheel, your joystick, your trackpad, which means, and this is big, your decisions determine your story, the story of your life. Every single decision becomes a permanent part of our stories. And if that's the case, we should stop at every decision-making juncture and consider the story that we want to tell. Perhaps more compelling, we should consider the story we want told about us. And the good news is you get to decide, but you decide one decision at a time, because you write the story of your life one decision at a time. This content will help you develop the discipline to pause and ask 5 questions that will result in better decisions and fewer regrets.